Hello, viewers. Today is Saturday, November 2nd, 2024. We have only 2 more days. After that is the election day on Tuesday, November 5th. So today I'm going to look at the battleground states, and I'm going to look at the state of Georgia. Remember, yesterday I said there are 4 states that are tied right now, which is Georgia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So I'm going to look at Georgia. So let's go and look at the early voting totals and how it measures up with 2020 data and what is the gender makeup and the voter composition as of now in terms of early voting. So without any delay, let's go into the presentation. There we go. This is the map of Georgia. The counties that are won by Joe Biden is marked in blue as per the 2020 results. And then the counties that were won by Donald Trump is marked in red as per the 2020 result. And as you could see, that this is where the majority of the votes are in terms of population. And this is where Democrats do very well. This is Atlanta and the suburbs of Atlanta. Atlanta spans into 2 cities, Fulton and DeKalb. So this is the place where Democrats get most of the votes. And all the other rural counties, there might be smaller counties, but Trump wins them by a bigger margin. And that's why the state election is always kind of tight in terms of the Senate as well as for the presidential elections, at least from 2020 onwards. Let's go into the next slide. So let's look at the Georgia early voting data. There were totally 4,011,000 odd votes as of today. This is as of 4 p.m. today. Out of the 7.2 million active voters, so the turnout is actually more than 50%. It's 55.39% when you compare it with active voters. And the split up on the early turnout is between absentee ballots and the early voting. It's like 4,011,820. So the absentee ballots, there were like 72.48% of the absentee ballots have been returned so far, and 72.16% of the absentee ballots that were returned has been absentee ballots that were requested has been accepted so far. And then the early in voting person is 3.7 million odd voters, and that gives you a total of 4,011,820. That's the data as of today. You compare it with the 2020 final votes cast in that state of Georgia, and there were close to around 6 million voters, and it's around 55.87% of the voters that voted in 2020. So if you go back to the next slide. In terms of gender, 56% of the early voters so far has been female, 43.8% has been male. And this is where I talked about the gender gap. And there is a gender gap in terms of the voter composition itself as of now, almost 13%. This is quite high. And let's look at the other data and then we'll come to this. Then we look at the early voting by race. White voters are 56%, Black voters are 25%, Hispanics and Asian are close to around 2.5 to 3, and other unknown race is like around 9%. So if you look at this number, Republicans will be reasonably happy about this, and the Democrats are okay with this percentage, but they would like to get this up to around 28-30%. That's what they would like to see that at. Then you look at the voter participation rate by race. Out of the total number of registered voters or active voters in Georgia, white voters are close to 3.7 million. Out of them, around 2.24 million has voted already. That's a good 60% of the white electorate. Then if you look at the Black voters, there are close to around 2.1 million Black voters, active voters in the state of Georgia. Around 1,019,000 voters have already voted. That constitutes 46.94%. And if you don't go down the list, you will see the rest of the numbers for Hispanic, Asian, and others. But the most important thing here I would like to see is what is the gender composition here? Even among the whites, you look at it, there is a 7-point difference in the gender composition, and there is a 7-point gap between the female voters and the male voters. And if you look at among black voters, it's a lot more higher. And then Hispanic voters also, there is a 15-point gap. So if you look at the gender gap is very real in terms of composition in the state of Georgia. And the gender gap is also very real in terms of ethnicity as well. So the one thing that we can glean from this is female voters are very, very energized in the state of Georgia. And so the male voters are not so energized. So this must be a good news for the Democratic strategist and the campaign of Kamala Harris. But let's look at the next slide. So these again are the top 10 counties that Democrats won that are marked in blue color, and then the top 10 counties that Donald Trump won in 2020. And we are just comparing the 2024 early voting with the actual votes in 2020. So if you look at Clayton, and the active voters are 184,000, out of which 46% has voted already. That is a little lower, and Democrats would be willing to would be interested to look at this to get this up to at least a good percentage above 60 right up now, as of now, but that has not happened. And the margin in 2020 for the Democrats is 79,000 votes. The margin is also around 70%. So the total votes cast in 2020 was 112,000. So if you look at that number, around 76% of the 2020 voters have already voted. That's a good number when the state percentage is only 55%, and your Clayton County is doing better in terms of the 2020 voters, and that's pretty good. But still, Clayton County is lagging behind the 55% state average. When you look at Cobb, it's one of the very big counties. The next three are the largest counties. This is where the most of the votes come from in the state of Georgia, and then Gwinnett. Sorry, these four states. So four counties. So you look at these. Let's look at Cobb. Cobb, they are actually overperforming the state average. They are at 60%, and almost 80% of the 2020 voters have already voted. DeKalb, again, a huge county with 500,000 active voters. They are at 58.2% participation as of now. That's also a good number. These margins are very good for Biden in 2020, and they are also at around 78, 79% of 2020 voters. Then you look at Fulton. This is the largest county in the state of Georgia, 757,000 voters. They are at around 58.15% of the vote among those 440,000. Among the 757, around 440,000 have voted. That's 58.15% participation this time. And this is also a good number. And the margin here is huge for Biden in 2020. And look at that participation in terms of 2020 voters voting percentage. It's like 84% of the 2020 voters have already voted. So Gwinnett, again, it's good. Still, Democrats would like to see this get to 58, and 77% of the 2020 voters have already voted. Henry, it's a good number for them. Around 84% of the 2020 voters have already voted. Out of 175, I don't know, 104,000 people have already voted. So that's a good sign as well. In Chatham, that's not looking good for Democrats. They are below that state average. And 75% of the 2020 voters have voted. They had a good margin in Chatham, so they would like to increase this. At least they should get to the 2020 number, and hopefully they will have a little bit more than the 2020 number at the end of the election cycle on Tuesday evening. Richmond, again, they are lagging behind the state average, not a good sign. And only 63% of the 2020 voters have voted so far. Muskogee, again, behind. 75% of the 2020 voters have voted. So that means at least 25% of the voters should come and vote on election day. Let's wait and watch these states. Bibb, I heard that the enthusiasm in Bibb is slightly lower. They had a good margin in 2020. So Democrats should be knocking more doors on election day in the Bibb County to get this to almost 2020 level. That means around 32% of the voters need to come and vote. So that's how the Democrats' top 10 counties look like based on their victory in 2020, the top 10 counties. And you could see, if you're a Democratic strategist, if you look at these 4 counties, Cobb, DeKalb, Fulton, and Gwinnett, they must be reasonably comfortable that they are getting the votes. And these are the major population centers. And the one cause of concern, of course, is Chatham and also Bibb. And they also need to look at Clayton. So Clayton and Bibb and Chatham is something that they need to look at on election day. So overall, this looks like a good turnout for the Democrats. They are getting almost above 75% of the 2020 votes in most of those counties, except for Richmond and Bibb. So above 75% of the 2020 votes so far is a very good number, and especially they should be very happy with Fulton, where they had a 46% margin and they have already hit 84% of the 2020 votes. I'm sure this is going to cross, Fulton will cross the 2020 turnout, and Fulton is going to have more than 523,000 votes this time. Same thing with DeKalb. I am very confident that DeKalb is going to hit close to around 390 or 400,000 total votes, and Cobb as well. I would think it will hit around 420. So we'll wait and watch on election night. Look at these counties and see how many votes are polled in these 4 counties, Cobb, DeKalb, Fulton, and Gwinnett. That will tell you the story on the Atlanta and Atlanta suburbs. Then coming into the Republican top 10 counties based on 2020, Cherokee, they're at 62%. That's very good. And 86% of 2020 voters have already voted. So this must be really, really good news for the Republican campaign. Forsyth, again, that margin is 33, and 89% of those 2020 voters have come and voted already. And so this number is going to increase. The total votes are actually 168,000, and out of which 129,000 voted in 2020. I think this is going to go up to close to 140,000 or so. Same thing here. This will go to 150 or 160. And look at Hall again. They are slightly above the state average, but when you compare to the total active voters, they are also doing very well here. Now only 90,000 people voted in 2020 out of the 140. This is going to hit 100,000 easily this time. Paulding, again, a good number, above 55. Anything above 55 is good for them, and it's also above 85. So that's also very good, and that means this will hit 95,000 this time. Columbia, again, they're doing reasonably well here. 80% of those voters have come out, and that's a good news. Again, this I think is going to increase. Coweta, 60% of them have voted, out of which, out of the total voters, 86% have already come. Out of the 2020 voters, 86% have already come and voted. So if you look at all these numbers, they are doing very, very well. So the big news coming out of Georgia for the Republicans is they are doing very well in the counties that they won, and they are bringing their voters to come and vote early. So they have not done what they did last time, which is to vote on election day. They have come out in larger numbers and they have voted, and that's a very good news for the Trump campaign. And Carroll is one where they are at around 75. Still, it's a very good number, and their margin is very high. There is only one county that I would like to call out here, Fayette County. They have 86% of the 2020 votes in. But remember, they won this county only by 4,894 votes. So this is a county that is, again, it's an extended suburbs of the Atlanta area. And the Democrats had an eye on this county, and they are thinking that they will flip this county. So while on the one hand, the actual early voting percentage of 67, which is above the state average, is good, and the 86% of the 2020 voters have voted is also very, very good, Republicans will be thinking about whether they will increase the vote percentage. Their margin is only 6.8%. Can they increase it to 8 or 9? Or is Kamala Harris making inroads? And are you in trouble to even get to a 2% margin here? So that's a big question. And I will tell you why by going into the map and see exactly where Fayette is. So look at where is Fayette. It's right here, right near Henry, Clayton, the extended suburbs of Atlanta. These are the places where the Democrats are doing very well. They will continue to do very well, is the belief or the expectation, I would say. And so this is an important county that Democrats are looking at. They want to flip this to blue. Similarly, I will look at Peach. Is another county that Trump won by a smaller margin as opposed to the other counties. This is another county that Democrats are planning to flip. And Bibb County, Democrats have some issues on the Bibb County. Their vote percentage is not that good as of now in terms of early voting. I will look on election day, what is the voter turnout? How does the voter turnout look like in Bibb County? I will also look at Chatham. I will also look at counties like Gwinnett. But DeKalb and Fulton is doing very well. I will look at Gwinnett and see how it's performing in terms of the in-person vote on Tuesday. Then you have Bibb again, as I said, and then Chatham is also a county that they really need to look out for. And for the Republicans, they're going to do well in all these rural counties. Can they increase the vote percentage? It looks like they are increasing the vote percentage, at least on the top 10. But you look at Cherokee and Forsyth, it's one of the top 10 Republican counties, but you look at the place where it is from. It's an extended suburbs of Atlanta area. So by having more voter turnout here, are you really confident that you are going to win by a bigger margin than 2020? Or are the Democrats going to get more votes out of Cherokee and Forsyth? I'll just go back to that one more time to show. Cherokee and Forsyth is the big population centers for Donald Trump. And he won by an excellent margin of 39% and 33%. But is he going to increase this margin? Or is Kamala Harris going to do well because it's closer to the Atlanta area? It's an extended suburb. The female voters are voting in larger number across the board on the state of Georgia. If you look at that, 56% are female voters, only 43.8% are male voters. So are they really doing, or are they really voting for Trump or not on those red counties? We do not know. So that's why this state is kind of a flip of a coin state like Wisconsin right now, because on the one hand, you do see that Democrats are happy that they are doing very well on their counties, Cobb, DeKalb, Fulton, Gwinnett, even on Henry. But on the other hand, Republicans are cautiously optimistic about these numbers, and they think that they are getting all their votes in early. So they both have, but the gender gap, if there is a 13%, almost a 13% gender gap in voter composition at the end of this election, then I think that Democrats have a very good chance. Even if it is 12% or 11% gender gap in terms of voter composition, Democrats will be very, very, very happy, because I think it is going to be very difficult if the voter composition is 55-44 for Trump to win. And then you look at the black voters, African American voters were close to 1.1 million in 2020. We already have seen 1,019,000 votes already in. So this number, I'm sure, is going to be close to 1.2 or 1.3 million after the elections are over on Tuesday evening. So this would mean that African Americans have come out in larger numbers. And that would also mean it looks like the African American female voters are coming in larger numbers. Look at this, 62 to 37. So this is the largest group. The African American woman is the largest group when you look at the female percentages on this column. And this is the key to Kamala Harris winning the state. If she had to win the state, look at this. How many African American voters have voted in this election? At the end of the day, Tuesday night, if Kamala Harris wins, everybody is going to talk about this number. The African American female voters have propelled Kamala Harris to win Georgia. If she wins, that will be the headline. And if Trump wins Georgia, the headline will be very simple. He increased his margin across all his rural counties. And generally, that means that his theory that you can get more his base voters and going hard to the base would have succeeded in the state of Georgia. Those are the two meaningful things that you can glean. If Kamala Harris wins, you can say that African American woman has propelled Kamala Harris to win the state of Georgia. And if Donald Trump happens to win, we can very easily say that his theory of increasing the number of his base voters has worked in the state of Georgia, and that's why that's why you would have won the state of Georgia. So, given all this fact, why did I say that it is a tie yesterday? So you know why? Because there are some advantages for the Democrats, and then there are some advantages for the Republicans. It's very difficult now to say that this person is going to win. It's very, very difficult, and that's why I call it as a tie. Maybe on Monday we can look at some more numbers, and we can also look at where the momentum is. This is one thing I want to tell you. I told you 3 weeks ago that the momentum will shift. There will be 2 or 3 directional changes in terms of how this whole election is turning out to be. So in the last 4 or 5 days, you could see that there is a slight momentum shift in favor of Kamala Harris. She's going to the middle. She's appealing to the independents, and it looks like it's working. Look at all the polls. Look at, how even Democrats were really worried 10 days ago. But then she came out, and the Madison Square Garden, the comedian speech about Puerto Rico helped her. And then she came out. She had this event in Washington, D.C., where she wanted to unite the country. She went to the middle. So she's trying to get the independent votes. So that, coupled with the fact that there are some self-inflicted wounds by Donald Trump, he talked about how he feels like Liz Cheney should be executed. And he also talked about his ex-military chiefs in the same vein. So it's a lot of this negative. The negativity in his campaign is dragging him down, not by much, by a very small margin. But we are all looking at a very small margin in these battleground states. So I still would not say that the momentum is fully with Kamala Harris, but there is definitely a direction shift towards Kamala Harris, very slow shift, but we will know more tomorrow and most likely Monday as well. So let's keep an eye out for this, and then we will take it from there. So before I go, I just want to again reiterate that please go ahead and vote. It doesn't matter whom you vote for, as long as you vote. And before you vote, at least try to be an informed voter. Look at the issues and look at the things in terms of how everything is shaping out on that issue, and do some analysis, and then make your own informed judgment. It's your vote, your right, and your decision, but make sure you do it carefully and have a deliberative process, and then go ahead and vote. But please do vote. That's more important than anything else. It doesn't matter whom you vote for. That's it for me today. I'll come back to you with a different episode tomorrow. Till then, take care.